Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. So just a few days ago I did a video talking about the 2026 governor's elections and what I viewed as the Democrats' best case scenario for that map. Today, as I promised, this video is going to be the best case scenario for what the Republicans could do in 2026. So we have a lot of races to go over. Let's get right into it. First, I'm going to start with the races I expect will not be very competitive and will be more than 15-point Republican wins. These are going to be governor's races in Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, and Florida. I expect all these will be by more than 15% of the vote. And after Florida has trended so far to the right under Ron DeSantis, I expect it will likely continue, especially in the Republicans' best case scenario. So that gets the Republicans essentially a floor of 10 governor's races really right away, no matter what. Now, I think there are a few number of seats that I think are also going to be safe for the Democrats, really no matter what, as well. I think we see California go in the safe column for the Democrats. Hawaii goes safe for the Democrats. I think we see Massachusetts and Rhode Island go safe. And I think we see Westmore and Maryland potentially win by a safe margin as well. The only thing that would change Maryland would be if Larry Hogan, the former governor, runs against him. But for now, I think we see that go safe for the Democrats. So that gets the Republicans at 10, Democrats are at 5. Now we start to go into the races that I think are essentially safe for both respective parties, but could be a little bit be under that 15% margin. And the first one of these for the Republicans to talk about, I think, is the state of Texas with Republican Governor Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott won back in, I believe it was 2022, at the governor level here. He won by around 11 points. So I think in the Republicans' best case scenario, we see Texas relatively be similar to 2022, maybe a little bit better. 2026 will be a more Democratic expected wave year, but I think Republicans could hold on to Texas by over double digits in the governor's race in 2026. So that would be a likely Republican win. The next one that could be a likely Republican win in the GOP's best case scenario would be the state of Alaska. This is a race that could potentially become competitive, but with Mike Dunleavy being term limited, but after he won by 26 points, even with the open race, with Democrats are feeling very optimistic in this race, I think Republicans win here by a pretty reliable margin. But I do think it'll be under 15 points since it is an open race. And Alaska, the governor level, has shown some very interesting abilities to be competitive races here. The next one that I think would be in the likely column would actually be the state of New Hampshire with Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte, who just won in 2024 for the first time as governor of New Hampshire by 9.3%. For 2026, in the best case scenario, we probably see her get close to breaking 15%, but win by about 12 to 13 points or so, still in the likely category. That would put the Republicans up to 13. The next seat that I think is most likely at this point would be the state of Ohio. Ohio Republican Vivek Ramaswamy, the 2024 presidential candidate, will be facing off against either Democrat Amy Acton or former U.S. Representative Tim Ryan. Now, Ohio, back in 2022, voted for Mike DeWine by 25 points at the governor level, though back in 2018 it was a close race, only 3.7%. But Ohio, we've seen, has been a consistent, likely Republican state for President Trump in all three of his presidential elections, winning it by 11 points in 2024. I think we see Vivek win Ohio by a likely Republican margin for 2026 in the GOP's best case scenario. Another one to talk about is the state of Vermont. Vermont right now would be a safe Republican state. The question is just going to be, does Republican Phil Scott run for re-election again? He's a very liberal Republican, but he is someone that keeps getting elected by large margins in New England. If he runs again, I think he'll win by a safe margin. So in the GOP's best case scenario, that would involve Phil Scott running again for this race. The next one that would go into the likely Republican category, I actually think would start with the state of Kansas, where this is currently held by Democratic Governor Laura Kelly. Now, she won two very close elections in 2022 and 2018, but the state of Kansas voted for Donald Trump at the presidential level by 16 points in 2024. But seeing as it is a Democratic governor that is term limited, it'll be an open race, and it is a contentious primary underway on the Republican side. I think the GOP will win it by under 15 points in their best case scenario, but they will flip the seat from blue to red in the 2026 cycle. The next state that I think would be the most likely Republican win would be the state of Iowa. Iowa, this is Republican Governor Kim Reynolds. She is term limited and cannot seek, or she could seek a third term, but is choosing not to. This is an open race, but one that the Republicans, in their best case scenario, should be winning by more than 5 points, but under 15 points. Now, it is worth noting that Democrats are running Rob Sand, the only statewide elected Democrat right now, and he is someone that is a strong candidate and is giving Democrats a lot of optimism. But based on Iowa's voting history, at the governor level, a 18.5% win in 2022 and a 13-point win for Trump in 2024, the Republicans should be at least winning this state by more than 5 points in their best case scenario in 2026. Now, that's probably going to be it for sure likely Republican wins. There are a few more that I think could be likely Republican, but for now, I'm going to put there. Now we have some states that I think fall into the likely Democratic category. These are going to be states that are going to be in between 5 and 15% for Democrats that Republicans may like to contest, but I think are probably going to be a little bit out of reach. The first one's going to be Colorado, with Democrat Jared Polis being term limited and U.S. Senator Michael Bennet is the favorite to become the Democratic nominee there. I think we could see it be under 15 points, but I don't think the Republicans are going to have much of a chance in that governor's race. Illinois with J.B. Pritzker, I also think, is going to be a similar situation. For the Republicans' best case scenario, Illinois did once upon a time elect a Republican governor. You have to go back to 2014 for that in the Republican wave year. But I think we're far way away from how that ended up going, and I think we're going to see Illinois still remain in the Democratic column by the likely margin for 2026. Now, the state of Oregon with Tina Kotek was pretty competitive back in 2022. She only won by 3.4%, but a third-party candidate split about 8.5% of the vote. Unless something changes in regards to Oregon, I think we probably see it be in the likely Democratic margin for the Republicans' best-case scenario. I don't think we're going to see it in a realistic sense going towards the GOP. Now we move into New England, where I think the state of Connecticut, though it has had some potential in recent elections, it voted 12.9% in 2022 for the Democrat. Back in 2018, the Democrat Lamont only won by 3.2%. Back in 2014, the race was actually pretty competitive at 2.6%. But I think given how the state has trended in recent years, we'll probably see Connecticut go in the likely Democratic category. Maine, I'm actually not going to do yet. I'm going to come back to, because I think there's a little bit of a hidden story developing in the state of Maine that I do want to talk about more in depth. Now, these are all the states that I think for sure would go in the Democratic, or would go for sure the Democratic category, except for one in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, Republican Stacey Garrity is running against Democrat Josh Shapiro, and Garrity is a much better Republican candidate than Doug Mastriano was from 2022. But given Shapiro's approval ratings, I think we're going to see Pennsylvania remain in the likely Democratic category. But could Garrity get it around 5.5 to 6 points and essentially save the Republicans down ballot in the House races? That could play a very important role for 2026. I think Pennsylvania overall, though, as we've seen it become a very competitive state at the presidential level, this one's more about Josh Shapiro being a very strong candidate than it is about Pennsylvania being out of reach for the GOP. At the governor level, I think it's more of a Josh Shapiro being very good situation. Now we have some states that certainly are more on the likely Democratic side, but in the Republicans' best case scenario, could potentially go for the GOP, but probably won't. First one is the state of Minnesota with Democratic Governor Tim Walz. Tim Walz won this election back in 2022 by 7.7%, but we did see the president lose to Kamala Harris by 4.2% in the state in 2024 with Walz as the running mate on the ticket. So it is possible that we could see the Republicans make a little bit of inroads here in their best case scenario, but we still probably will see Minnesota go for the Democrats. Now we have the state of New Mexico, where Republicans, I'm sure, would love to make this state competitive, but we saw the state go for Kamala Harris by 6 points in 2024. We also saw the governor's race in 2022 go about 6.4% for the Democrat Grisham. In the GOP's best case scenario, I think we see New Mexico fall under 5%, but I think we also, like with Minnesota, see the Democratic identities a little too strong and the Democrats end up winning that state. Now, the last one of this, or actually maybe not the last one, but the state of New York could be very interesting because New York voted for Kathy Hochul by only 6.4% in 2022. And this may essentially be the best the Republicans could do in the state, seeing as it was a Republican midterm year. The presidential race, a 12.6% win for Kamala Harris, though it was a little bit closer. Could there be a scenario in 2022 where Kathy Hochul faces off against Elise Stefanik and the Republican Stefanik's able to get this race under 5 points in the state of New York? It's a little bit hard to imagine, but it is at very least in the GOP's best case scenario where everything goes right for them. It is a little bit possible. If Hochul's approval ratings were so bad, it was like a 4.8% win for her, at very least, it is possible. I don't think it will happen in reality, but it could happen. Now we move to the state of Maine. Maine's an interesting state because Maine has not consecutively elected a governor of the same party like 3 terms in a row ever in the state's history, which at very least makes this governor's race very interesting. Another thing I'm watching in the state of Maine right now is that there's a Republican candidate running, or potentially running, in Jonathan Bush, the nephew of former U.S. President George W. Bush, and the Bush family obviously has a very big connection to the state of Maine. And this alone makes the race interesting. It's currently listed as likely Democratic from Cook, Politico, and Inside Elections, but Salvador's crystal ball has recently changed this race towards the Republicans in the lean Democratic category. Race the White House has it as tilt Democratic. The idea of Bush running in Maine, given their connections to the state, and a wide open Democratic primary between the Secretary of State, President of the Maine Senate, and son of the U.S. Senator Angus King, wide open on the Democratic side, potentially a Bush running in Maine, at very least makes the prospects of this race very interesting. So Maine, in the Republicans' best case scenario, I do think it still ultimately goes to the Democrats, but I would not be totally shocked if we're talking about the possibility where the Republicans are outperforming expectations for 2026 if Maine falls under a category of maybe the Republicans are able to pull off a narrow upset in the state of Maine. It's certainly very far-fetched right now as we're talking about 2026 in the governor's map, but in the GOP's best case scenario, all I'm saying is keep a little bit of an eye on Maine. I think it still ends up going Democrat when everything is said and done, but if Jonathan Bush becomes the Republican nominee, he's going to have the backing, obviously, of the Bush family, and that comes with a lot of money to spend in voter outreach, and whether it's TV ads, whether it's knocking on doors, campaign flyers, whatever it is, there's a lot of potential for Bush to make that race a lot closer than a generic Republican possibly could. So all I'm saying is, even in the GOP's best case scenario, keep an eye on Maine. That could be an important one to watch. Now we have 5 governor's races left. All of them were in very competitive states that President Trump did win in the 2024 presidential election. Starting with the state of Nevada, this is Republican Governor Joe Lombardo. He won a very close race in 2022. And in this one against Aaron Ford, the Democratic Attorney General, you have him winning re-election by a little bit over 5% in the GOP's best case scenario. Now, this one could happen. I think this race is going to be very close, under 5 points. But I think in the Republicans' best case scenario, we could see Lombardo holding on to this race and winning it. Next, we have the state of Georgia. This is Governor Brian Kemp, who is term limited. It's an open race. Chris Carr is running against Burt Jones in the Republican primary. The Democratic primary is completely wide open. Brian Kemp just won this race by 7.5% in 2022. I don't think we see the Republicans win it by quite that much, even in their best case scenario, but I do think Republicans could hold on to this race by a little bit under 5 points, around 4.5% or so in their best case scenario. Certainly I could see Georgia going red. So at this point, the Republicans have held every seat they currently hold on the governor's side and flipped the states of Kansas. But now we have some other pickup opportunities in Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Starting with Arizona. Arizona currently is the closest governor's race in the country that I am watching right now. This is Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs. She very barely got elected against Kari Lake in 2022. Andy Biggs and Karen Taylor Robson are both running in this Republican primary. The early polling has shown Katie Hobbs will lead of about 2 to 3 points over Biggs and Karen Taylor Robson in these early polling, with a lot of undecided vote left. After such a narrow victory of 0.67% in 2022 and President Trump winning the state by 5.5% in 2024, in the GOP's best case scenario, I think we could see the Republicans winning by under 5 points, but more than 1 point in this race, giving it to the GOP. That will put the Republicans up at 20 governor seats. Now we have the states of Wisconsin and Michigan, 2 states that very narrowly voted for President Trump. Oh, that's the 28 map, for President Trump in 2024, Wisconsin and Michigan by 1.4 in 2024 at the presidential level. Down ballot at the Senate level, things have been a little bit less good for the Republicans in Wisconsin and Michigan, and at the governor level, it's been even worse. In 22, Gretchen Whitmer won by 10.5%. 2022, Evers won by 3.4%. Now, the good news for the GOP in these 2 states is both Evers and Whitmer are not running again. They are both, in Whitmer's case, term limited, or in Evers' case, deciding to seek a third term, decided against it. So this race is open. Now, Wisconsin's going to be very close. lots of Democrats could be running for the Democratic nomination. Republican U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany is the top name to potentially run for governor at this current point in time. Michigan is a special case, as the independent Mayor Mike Duggan of Detroit is running for governor and getting a very large percent of the vote. So John James, the Republican, running for the Republicans in Michigan against Democrat Jocelyn Benson against independent Mike Duggan is going to make a very close race with a lot of third-party vote, causing some potential splitting of the vote. When everything is said and done, I think we could see a very potential scenario here where we see Wisconsin and Michigan both very narrowly go for the GOP in their best case scenario. I do have it under 1 point because I do think that's what it would take to win those elections, but I do think the Republicans, when everything is said and done, could flip these two governor seats to their side. So right now, the Republicans' best case scenario, I have them winning 22 governor's races to the Democrats' 14. Now, there are some close races that I think the Republicans could try and target in their best case scenario, like New Mexico, like Minnesota, like New York, and in Maine, like I mentioned, as a potential sleeper. But I think when everything is said and done, the Democratic identity of those states is just a bit too strong that I think the Democrats still win those races. Though Maine especially, I am keeping a little bit of an eye on. But Republicans, I think in their best case scenario, will be able to get at least around 22 governor's races to the Democrats' 14. Because again, I am trying to keep it realistic. I'm not trying to say the Republicans will win every governor's race. I want to make it realistic and actually think that it could happen. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure and like and subscribe. If you did, leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts on this video and any other comments or suggestions you would like to leave. Leave them all down in the comment section. Again, if you enjoyed, make sure to hit like and subscribe as well so you never miss when I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video.